If you know hardcore Minecraft, chances are you know Philza. From surviving for 5 years without dying to creating some of the most jaw-dropping builds in hardcore Minecraft, Phil has established himself as one of the most notable players to play the game. So join me as I take you on a journey through his career telling the legend of Philza. Phil started his channel in December 2006, and YouTube was a much different place. The platform had just been purchased by Google less than a month earlier and was barely a year old. At the time, the gaming community was much smaller and was mostly confined within the games themselves and small online forums rather than on major platforms like those we see today. At the time, 18-year-old Phil was like most other 18-year-olds and enjoyed playing video games such as Halo 2. Which happened to be what his first video was about. As the years passed, Phil continued to post the occasional Halo video as well as videos on Skate 2 and 3, Sonic, GTA, Killtack, and Mirror's Edge. He also began to play these games live on Justin TV, which later evolved into Twitch. But nothing seemed to catch on, and for his first 5 years, he continued to stream and upload funny clips and moments from his gameplay. But something happened in November 2011 that would change the course of his channel and YouTube forever. Minecraft took the world by storm, becoming an instant hit following its release. Its unique style and open-world nature had a sense of freedom that appealed to many. One of these people was Phil. Although he had enjoyed playing video games for many years, there was always a new game on the horizon that he would move to. No game seemed to stick for more than a few years. No game until Minecraft. Immediately, Phil took a great liking to the game, specifically the game mode of hardcore. If you aren't familiar with hardcore Minecraft, it's pretty simple. The game is locked on the hardest difficulty, and if you die a single time, you can't respawn and are forced to either spectate the world or delete the world for good. Phil loved the risk involved with hardcore, and the idea that at any moment he could lose everything. To him, this made everything he did feel more meaningful than if he could just respawn with no consequences. And before long, he took to YouTube, creating his very first series of hardcore Minecraft. Phil uploaded his very first hardcore video on February 7th, 2012. And needless to say, it was a rough start.
Ah! I've got no sword! Oh my god, I'm gonna die. No! No! Oh god!
A week later, Phil came prepared and determined to make it through the first night, which proved to be a difficult task in the early days of the game. He began his new journey by chopping a few trees and crafting some wooden tools. This time making sure to craft a sword and quickly upgrade to stone in case he needed to fight. And after gathering some food, Phil set out to make a shelter for the night. He made his way to the mouth of a cave and decided he would explore for a bit and set up camp inside. At first, he was hesitant to enter, hearing the monsters that lied ahead. But using his sword, he made quick work of everything in his way. For the rest of episode 1, Phil continued to mine and fight his way through the depths of the cave until he decided to wall off a small section and settle down for the night. Satisfied with his accomplishments, Phil ended his first successful hardcore video. Over the next few episodes, Phil would continue to explore his cave and mine, managing to acquire a full set of iron armor and tools. Now feeling very confident at his ability to fight, Phil returned to the surface and began exploring his world. He crossed forests and oceans looking for the perfect place to call home. And in episode 9, his days of exploration finally led him to the foot of a mountain. Immediately, he knew this was the perfect place to stay and constructed his first official home. After this, some more underground exploring ensued where he managed to find a zombie spawner and mineshaft, followed by his very first diamonds. And with his sword in hand, Phil entered the Nether for the very first time, knowing that one false step could end his journey for good. He traversed the fiery wasteland, crossing lakes of lava and fighting off gas until he found himself at the foot of a strange building. Immediately, he knew he found what he was looking for and began to explore the fortress. He traveled the maze of hallways, slaying every blaze in his path with the draw of his bow until he had everything he needed and returned home. Everything was going well, and Phil, who had died on episode 1 the previous attempt, now stood on his 30th episode. And he knew that before long he would have to take the biggest risk of the entire series. Phil stood in the daring halls of the stronghold. He knew what lied beyond the portal, but it didn't make it any less terrifying. And before he went for the dragon, he knew he had to prepare, because if he failed, everything he worked for would be lost with the click of a button. He set up a house in a village next to the stronghold and immediately began to prepare for the final battle. He learned to brew potions, scoured forests to create an army of dogs, and continued to pile better and better enchantments onto his armor. Finally, he returned home to the mountain to gather any left supplies and to say goodbye in case he didn't make it back. He made his way across the world and back to the portal. Finally, he would face the ultimate challenge. And in episode 70, a full month after his first failed attempt at hardcore, Philza placed the final eye in the portal and jumped through to slay the dragon. He spawned on a mostly concealed underground platform and, following a quick scare by the dragon, mined a staircase to the surface of the end. Towers of obsidian rose high into the sky and a beam of light connected to the dragon as he glided by. Immediately, Phil drew his bow and began shooting down the crystals. He launched arrows as far as he could into the dark sky, swinging his sword as the dragon rushed in to attack. Slowly but surely, the dragon's health dropped. Before long, the dragon rushed in one last time. Quickly, Phil aimed his bow, sending the final arrow spiraling into the head of the dragon, killing it. And with that, Phil had for the first time beat Minecraft without dying. Following his victory, Phil entered the portal to return to the overworld and was sent all the way back to spawn, far from his home in the mountain. Being completely lost, he just decided to end the video, and having completed the game, Phil decided that for now, this would be the end of the series. Over the following months, Phil would continue to upload Minecraft content, creating a mod series titled Modtacular Minecraft, playing various adventure maps, as well as creating a few non-Minecraft videos. So far, although Phil enjoyed streaming and uploading videos, nothing seemed to be gaining much traction. But regardless, Phil loved his small community and was motivated by every person that found their way to his channel. 6 months later, Phil decided he would log back on to his hardcore world and continue the series. After reviewing footage, he retraced his steps, eventually finding his way back to his home in the village outside the end portal. His plan was to continue to build and prepare to fight the new boss that had been added to the game, the Wither. He started by making a mob grinder using the skeleton spawner outside the village. Then, over the next few episodes, he mined for ores and expanded his home quite a bit, creating a large carrot and wheat farm, sugarcane farm, villager spawner, and just improving the overall look of his home. He then began to experiment with nether travel, creating a nether hub and a portal to another area he wanted to build at. Walking through the portal, you're met with his impressive underwater base and tree farm. Phil had conquered hardcore. The end was nowhere in sight, and it seemed he could finally focus on creating the...
Alright guys, Philza here. Bad news. Recently I just had a power outage in my area. Everything in the house is fine, but one thing, my PC. It starts up okay, to the point where it needs to boot from a hard drive, and it looks like my main operating system hard drive is just gone. It's doing the click of death error, where it just won't be able to read anything. What's really annoying is that my Minecraft hardcore mode save world is on that hard drive. It could be lost forever, unfortunately. So I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Weeks passed. Phil began to upload different videos again, and quickly it became clear. his hardcore series was over. A year of work, 100 episodes lost in the data of a ruined hard drive. Another year came and went. Phil continued to upload Minecraft and the occasional Halo or GTA video. But once again, he started to get the urge to return. Something felt wrong and unfinished about his last world. And seeking to fill its void, he decided to start a new series. But little did he know, this click of a button would change his life forever. Upon entering the world, Phil found himself near the edge of a savanna island. He was pretty convinced the series would end very quickly with the bad spawn, but decided to explore the other side of the island to see if he could spot land. And sure enough, as he reached the other side of the island, he noticed it was actually very close to more land. Suddenly, this world began to have some promise, and he crossed the water to continue exploring. Having much more experience than Series 1, Phil had a much smoother start to the world. And rather than running around aimlessly for the first few episodes, Phil managed to get a full set of iron armor by the end of episode 2. In episode 3, Phil came inches from death and found his first diamonds of the world. Gathering obsidian, he made his way to the surface to try and get the supplies to make an enchanting table before heading into the Nether, which he managed to find no problem after running into a village. After looting the village and a nearby desert temple, Phil stood at the foot of a building, flint and steel in hand, ready to enter the Nether. Already, his luck had been even better than Series 1, and it was about to get even better.
Oh my god! Am I the luckiest person ever? I think I am.
But his luck wouldn't end there, as when he killed his second ever wither skeleton, it dropped a skull, which alone is a 2% chance. Series 2 was off to an amazing start, and would only get better. In episode 6, Phil discovered a zombie spawner directly outside the village, and in episode 7 and 8, he found another village and a jungle temple. By this point, Phil had put together a nice little home in the desert village, not too different from Series 1. This time, he planned to fight the dragon much sooner than episode 70, and at this point was just held back by a lack of ender pearls. He explored some more, finding himself a horse with which he discovered 4 more villages, a jungle temple, and 2 desert temples. His luck just wasn't seeming to run out. What is supposed to be the hardest difficulty of Minecraft was flat out easy for Phil. And still, his luck continued. He had a close call with a baby zombie at the spawner off camera, but managed to survive. And later that episode, he used a fortune pickaxe to mine all of the diamonds he needed for a full set of armor, as well as a bit extra for good measure. As confident as ever, Phil was ready to fight the dragon. He just needed to find the stronghold. He threw the first eye, which pointed him to the ocean. Getting in a boat, he sailed across the sea, and as he made his way towards an island, he noticed something out of place in the water.
Whoa. What? What?
His luck never seemed to fail, and as excited as ever, Phil dived deep below the surface, entering the portal room. Once again, the moment of truth had arrived, but this time, he was more ready than ever. As he fell through the portal, he once again spawned underground, and was immediately scared by the dragon. He dug to the surface, destroyed all the towers, and before long, Phil had slain the dragon once again. His plan after killing the dragon was to work on building. He started with his base at the village, adding a baby zombie statue on his house next to the villager trading center he built a few episodes back. And with that, zombie base, at least for now, was finished. Next, Phil turned his attention to the Nether, specifically making it much safer. First, he used a glitch to remove bedrock, creating a path to the Nether roof. Next, after lots of trial and error, he built a path through the Nether connecting zombie base and the end portal. And as an extra precaution, he spawn-proofed a large section of the Nether with slabs so he wouldn't have to worry about mobs. Now that the Nether was sorted out, he took to the seas, finding an ocean monument not too far from his home. Before raiding it, he planned to remove the water next to the entrance of the temple to protect himself from guardians and make enough water-breathing potions to last him the whole trip. He stared down the path to the monument, preparing to enter. However, even though he was about as prepared as he could be, he still feared that that day would be his last. He made his way to the cleared door. Swallowing his fear and a potion of water breathing, Phil entered the monument. He swam his way through the halls, looking for an Elder Guardian. But he couldn't seem to find one. Until, walking around a corner, he quickly spotted 2 of them in the same room. Using the walls as protection, he swung at the beast from behind the doorway, finishing them off with a shot from his bow. A few minutes later, he located the 3rd Elder Guardian, easily slaying it with his sword. He lived. And now that the monument was cleared, he could begin work on his first major build. A build that would grow to become the face of his channel. The first order of business was to cover the entire monument in sand, then break the sand to remove all of the water above the monument. And after weeks of grinding, placing and destroying sand, he finished. Next, he planned to terraform the ocean floor, replacing the gravel with grass blocks to make the area look more natural. And after yet another week of grinding, the build finally seemed to be coming together. But there was still a lot left to do. And so, for the next 5 months, Phil continued to build. The build was nearly complete. Seamless walls of glass surrounded the land, green grass covered the once barren ground, and a guardian farm occupied the space underneath the monument. But in the middle of the final stages of the build, Phil received some terrible news. His good friend in the community, 22-year-old Matthew Adams, had tragically passed away. Phil took a much-needed break from work and recording, and when he returned, he knew exactly what he was going to do. Out of honor, he would dedicate the project to Matthew, vowing to not hold anything back and to make the best build he possibly could. And what resulted cannot be described with words. It was finally done. Months of work, not a single death, and the most amazing build he had ever done. Suddenly, the world had a whole new meaning, something much bigger than a game. And with the completion of the monument build, Phil realized how truly amazing he could be at building, and that quite literally, the sky was the limit. After leveling Spawn Island and building a giant mushroom in the Nether, Phil began his next major build in the world, Sky City. He began construction once again using an ocean monument. First, he planned to drop a large cube of sand onto the monument to create an outline above the water. And after weeks of mining and placing sand, he was ready to drop it all.
And hoop.
Oh my god. Fully expecting the game to crash. Oh my god. Oh, it looks like... Oh, it's speeding up. It's speeding up. Oh, are we done? Yo! Wow.
Now that Phase 1 was complete, Phil was ready for Phase 2, the quartz monument. His plan was to use quartz to replace the shell of sand, creating his own custom monument above the sea. And, well, it turned out pretty amazing. Next up was the Sky City part of Sky City. Phil began by building a large platform in the sky in case he needed to jump down while building. Then, he proceeded to construct a large floating island directly above the quartz monument. Unsure of exactly what he wanted to build on top, he left it blank for the time being. In the next episode, he decided to build a large castle wall encompassing a village with quartz buildings, as well as some extra decorations around the outside islands. Slowly but surely, the build was coming together. Just a few more things needed to be done. And once he finished the inside of the island and destroyed the platforms below, Sky City was finally finished. At this point, Phil had survived on one life until day 3,319 of the world, meaning he had played a total of 550 to 1,000 real-life hours. Series 2 had officially outlasted Series 1 by a long shot, having started over 2 years earlier. But still, Phil continued to build. He transformed the End Island, spawn-proofing it while building an Enderman farm at the center. And he began work on his next big build, Chaos Caverns. The idea was to create a large man-made cavern holding every obtainable hostile mob. Not an easy task at all, but Phil was determined. And so he got to work, exploding, gathering, and building. Days turned to weeks, weeks to months, until after a year and a half, it was finally done. And with this, he added yet another incredible build to his timeless world. Phil had officially made it over 4 years on a single life. Times had changed. Phil had been on YouTube and Twitch for over 11 years and was a lot better at the game than when he started all that time ago. His YouTube channel sat at 2,000 subscribers, a gem hidden from the rest of the world. But everything was about to change. It was a day like any other. Phil was working on his new project, a giant underground witch farm, attempting to dig down to set up a beacon so he could mine it out faster. Because of the major spawn proofing he'd done for the build, mob spawns were at an unnatural high in the surrounding caves. And this fact alone would bring about a moment that would change the course of Phil's life forever.
I knew it. No! Really? That's how I die? Oh my god, I'm stupid. Oh, a baby zombie. Oh my god.
It was all over. Phil had made it 5 years on a single life, only to watch it slip through his hands in less than 30 seconds. He was devastated. To Phil, it was much more than just a world. It was his canvas, his form of expression, something he could be proud of. And that day, it all went away for good. But then, something unexpected happened. People started talking, sharing the story of the man who lost his 5-year world. And before long, Philza, after 14 years of YouTube, began to go viral.
These past 40 hours to 3 days, it has been insane. It sucks that it's gone, and man was I salty. But I had no idea how big this moment would be. It has spread everywhere. It is worldwide. The clip has over 1 million views. Too many articles to count. I showed up on British television. It has gone fully viral. There's so many people that this moment has resonated with. I can't even describe it. I've never experienced anything like this. First of all, the main question I keep getting asked, what am I going to do now? More likely, start a new world. Because that is what I enjoy playing. Hardcore mode. Will I last as long as 5 years?
People finally began to take notice. Phil had been on the platform longer than most, and finally it was his time to shine. But soon, another opportunity would arise for Phil, something much different from hardcore. An event months in the making, introducing him to some of the largest creators to play the game, Minecraft Monday. Minecraft Monday was a 14-week event created by popular YouTuber Keemstar, and gathered many large creators from across YouTube to battle it out over a series of minigames for $10,000. And luckily for Phil, the event began mere months after he went viral. Meaning with his newfound success and legendary status in the community, he was invited to play. Joining in week 2, Phil would play with Jerome ASF for his first 7 weeks of the event. Together, they placed second overall in week 2, but after that only managed to peak at 5th place. However, Minecraft Monday's real impact on Phil would take place over his final 2 weeks in the event, as in week 10, he would be teamed with someone different. A player who had completely taken over the event. A player who, despite the admin's attempts to even the playing field, couldn't stop winning. Someone who would grow to become one of Phil's most loyal friends in the community, Technoblade. Entering the event, Phil and Techno were obvious targets, but quickly it became quite clear that it didn't really matter. Game 1 was Hunger Games, and Phil and Techno got to work straight away chasing and killing Connor Eats Pants and Captain Sparkles. They were just a few minutes in, and both nearly had full iron armor while Techno held a diamond sword. And feeling confident, the two decided to search for teams to fight. Techno killed Skeppy, Phil killed Aphmau, and with that, only one more team remained. Techno quickly realized that Zerka and Vicstar were not together, and so they rushed in to catch them off guard. And after a very quick fight, Phil and Techno had won their first game. After a solid performance in Bingo, things were looking very good with Techno and Phil holding the first and second positions on the individual leaderboards. But things quickly changed with Hide the Button. Phil's old teammate, Jerome, along with Beijing Canadian, had an amazing performance, shooting them all the way up to second place right on Techno and Phil's tail. This was concerning, but the two were still very confident they could win. And lucky for them, Game 5 was Skywars. Technoblade was amazing at Skywars, having played it consistently for years on Hypixel. And sure enough, Techno and Phil dominated Skywars, winning all 3 games and increasing their lead by 150 points. They were now just over halfway through the event and things were looking good. All they needed to do was hold their first place position and they would win $10,000. And with a solid performance in TNT Run, a victory in One Shot, and a good game of Spleef, it was finally time for the last game of the event, Hunger Games. All Phil and Techno needed to do was perform good enough to hold their position in first, and glory was theirs. With the start of the game, they immediately ran to the outer reaches of the map to scavenge the land for supplies. And 2 minutes in, they managed to get Techno a full set of iron armor and a diamond sword. And so, they began to hunt. Techno managed to pick up a quick kill on a clueless Grande in a nearby forest, getting Phil a chain chestplate. Feeling good, the two headed back to middle, and with a team effort took out High Sky, claiming yet another diamond sword. The numbers began to thin, and before long only a few teams stood between them and victory. A very intense fight broke out at mid, killing Phil in the midst of the chaos. But Techno lived, and after taking out one of the 2 people remaining, agreed to end it all with a fistfight to the death. and living up to his reputation, Techno won. Together, Phil and Techno had dominated the event, ranking first and second on the individual leaderboards. But more importantly, their friendship that began that day would grow into something special. Something shaping many of Phil's future adventures, and something he could never lose to a baby zombie. But Techno wasn't the only friend Phil made during Minecraft Monday. In week 12, Phil teamed with someone new who would play an equally important role in his future, Wilbur Soot. And although they didn't quite win the event, the friendship that resulted would provide a gateway to Phil's next adventure. As a few months later, in late November 2019, Wilbur would begin a new server, taking place on a scaled-down replica of the world, including many mods to spice up the game and holding upwards of 100 other creators. This was SMP Earth. The sun rises on a fresh new world, oceans waiting to be sailed, forests eager to be explored, and at the center lie dozens of players ready to lay their claims on the land. Phil originally planned to claim Iceland, but upon getting notice of a band of players plotting to kill him, decided instead to team with Technoblade at the South Pole. And together, the duo formed the beginning of the Antarctic Empire. Immediately, they got to defending their land, killing another player who looked to be hostile. But the fighting wasn't over yet. A low rumble came from the skies. Suddenly, erupting into view was Spifey, zooming through the air in a plane. Startled, Techno and Phil prepared to attack, and as he doubled back to attempt to ram Techno off the mountain, Phil managed to strike him with his sword, scaring him away. With their land now fully secured, Phil and Techno ventured deeper into the mountain, discovering an existing stronghold over a massive underground cave expanding down over 150 blocks. As they began descending into the depths of the cave, Techno invited a new player to their faction, VoiceOver Pete. For the rest of the day, the three continued to claim land, expanding their territory over much of Australia. They also received many requests for allegiances, including an unsuccessful attempt from upcoming YouTuber Tommy Innit, who was not exactly satisfied with their answer, reminding them that war was also an option. Over the next week, the Antarctic Empire continued to make small advances, including various farms and better gear. But something was about to happen that would change everything. The factions mod that ran on SMP Earth allowed territories to claim land based on the amount of players they had in their faction. And having 3 members, the Antarctic Empire was able to claim 3,000 chunks of land, which wasn't much compared to the size of the map. But Techno discovered a way around this. Using an autofill feature of the mod, they would only have to claim the perimeter for the mod to autofill the rest of the land inside to be theirs. Meaning, world domination. And after Techno and Phil had completed their journey around the world, they pulled up the map to see if their plan had worked.
Oh my god!
Check the map.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh no, dude.
Arctic world domination.
Antarctic Empire owns the world.
Word quickly spread across the server, and before long, everyone had logged on to see what the Empire had done. Quickly, the people became angry, and the server, led by Wilbur Soot, met in France to hold the trial of the Antarctic Empire. First, it was argued whether a crime had even been committed, as Techno pointed out that technically taking over the world was completely lawful. But quickly, it became obvious that the people would not just let them free. And so, after requests for execution and vows of brotherhood, everyone agreed that the Empire would be let free upon returning to their home in Antarctica and unclaiming the rest of the world. Satisfied, everyone returned to life as normal, and a new law was created prohibiting world domination. A few weeks would pass before the next conflict. The Antarctic Empire constructed a large railway connecting their land to Australia and began work on another base farther west. But then, Phil was alerted by Techno of an incoming enemy, contracted to assassinate him. Immediately, the Empire got in position to defend their land from the rogue assassin, until they realized who exactly was planning to attack them. Suddenly, a lot less concerned, Pete and Techno made their way down the path, managing to kill Tommy while Phil watched from the safety of their land. Over the rest of the day, Techno and Pete seeked revenge on Tommy and killed him many more times after, making sure he would not try anything like that again. which obviously didn't stop him. SMP Earth would not end for another few months, but after this point, Phil and later many other creators ended SMP Earth content on YouTube. Over his time on the server, Phil had continued to grow closer to Technoblade and Wilbur, while also befriending Tommy Innit over their various conflicts. And together, the four would continue to stand by each other's sides in adventures to come. One of those adventures began shortly after the beginning of SMP Earth in late November 2019. The community felt a void following the sudden ending to Minecraft Monday in week 14. It had been the first major Minecraft event in a long time, and the community longed for more. But lucky for them, they wouldn't have to wait long, as a new event would begin only a short month later. An event much different from the likes of Minecraft Monday. This event was Minecraft Championship. Phil joined Minecraft Championship in their very first week, and immediately knew it would be much different than Minecraft Monday. While Minecraft Monday felt strictly like an intense competition, MCC brought that same level of competitiveness contrasted with a lighthearted, almost arcade-like setting. The people loved it, and the players loved it even more. During the first two events, things started looking pretty good for Phil. His team in week 1 had a rough day, finishing 7th out of 10, but in week 2, his team would make it all the way to the final duel, losing tragically to the Aqua Horses. It was a crushing blow, but the pain wouldn't last long, as in week 4, Phil would be teamed with 3 of his best friends, Wilbur, Tommy, and Techno. The day was Saturday, April 18th. The team had been practicing for weeks, and the moment had finally arrived. They knew this could very well be their only chance to win together, as after that event, it was likely that the four would not team again for a long time. And so, more determined than ever, the team made their way to the Decision Dome to vote on the first game. Game 1 was Skyblockle. Phil began by gathering wood and crafting tools for the team. Meanwhile, Wilbur started bridging towards middle, but didn't make it very far. Phil took over Wilbur's job and built his way to the middle, making him the first player there. He immediately took advantage of this, gathering loot from many of the chests. So far, ignoring Wilbur's death, things were looking good. Phil held mid, securing a kill on blue and swooping in with an elytra to take out yet another player. But the aerial assault was far from over. The team spotted a massive fight below and decided to drop down and join. Phil crashed down from the skies onto a helpless Captain Sparkles, but then fell to the rest of his team. However, it was enough, as Techno and Tommy were able to take out the rest of the players with little problems, securing their team first place after Game 1. So far, the team was off to a hot start, and over the rest of the event, it would only get better. This was their chance. All that stood between Phil and his first ever win were the Green Guardians. They all prepared for the final battle. One last game to decide it all. Dodgeball. Phil stared coldly into the eyes of the enemy, focused as he'd ever been and determined to stay alive at all costs. The clock ticked to 0 and the battle began. Tommy managed to get the first shot off and took out Pete, who happened to be the Guardians' best player. Returning fire, Vicstar and Michael McChill hit Tommy and Wilbur, leaving the round up to Techno and Phil. Techno got out Vic, and Phil led a bit too far in front of Michael. It was back to dodging. The two jumped every which way, hoping to confuse the Guardians enough to miss. And it worked. Phil sprinted to the center of the arena, launching a shot directly into Michael, leaving only Burren left on the Guardians' side. And with a single shot from Techno, round 1 went to the Pandas. All they had to do was win one more round, and the championship would be theirs. They all lined up for round 2, and as the clock struck 0, Phil began to dodge.
I got one.
Nice.
I got Pete. Nice.
Two arrows.
Oh, they're going.
No.
I hit the wrong one.
There we go.
Oh, you got
I
it.
got both.
Yep. Oh,
Still going for me.
Oh, I'm out.
No!
nice!
Yes, that's 2. We win Minecraft Championship.
They had done it. After one of the best team performances in the history of the tournament, Phil and the rest of the team had finally won. And scoring 3rd on the individual leaderboards, Phil had put up his best performance yet. Over the rest of the tournaments, Phil's teams would perform fairly average with the exception of an amazing winning performance in MCC 12. And his journey in Minecraft Championship is still far from over, as he continues to participate in the events to this day. MCC gave Phil yet another opportunity to meet new creators in the community as well as strengthen the friendships he had already made. But his next adventure would prove to be even bigger. Something that would grow his channel even more than dying after 5 years of hardcore. Joining his friends Techno, Wilbur, and Tommy, he would enter the world of the Dream SMP.
Whenever I'm here, I'm reminded of the song that I've scribbled on the walls. That there was a special place. There was a special place. And there was definitely that special place did exist once. It did. But even with Tubbo in charge, I don't think it can exist again. If I'm gonna press it ever, it's now. The thing that I built this nation for doesn't exist anymore. The thing I worked towards doesn't exist anymore. It's over.
What are you doing?
Phil?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what this button is?
Uh-huh. I do.
I was just saying, I made this big point that that there was a special place where men could go, but it's not there anymore, you know, it's not.
It is there.
I've
You've
met-
just won it back, Will.
Phil, I'm always so close to pressing this button, Phil. I've been here like 7 or 8 times. I've been here.
And you want to just blow it all up.
There was a saying, Phil, by a traitor, once part of the Manberg. It was never meant to be.
Oh my god. Oh my god! Will! It's all gone!
My Manberg, Phil! My unfinished symphony, forever unfinished! If I can't have this, no one can, Phil! Kill me, Phil. Phil, kill me. Phil, kill me. Phil, stab me with the sword. Murder me now.
No matter what you want, I can't.
Phil, kill me, Phil. Murder me. Look, they all want you to.
Everything was gone. Phil stood in shock. He had joined only to witness one of his best friends fall to chaos. He had no choice but to kill him, as he knew he would be associated with the destruction if he didn't. And so, he took Wilbur's last life on the server, setting him free at last. Phil had joined the Dream SMP during the climax of one of its largest wars, getting tossed right into the midst of chaos. But Phil saw something in the ashes of Lemanberg, an opportunity to help the people recover from the destruction that reigned on their sacred land, an opportunity to rebuild. And so, in the coming days, as New Lemamberg sprouted from the depths of the crater, Phil constructed his house in the new land. But despite his immediate sympathy for the people of Lemamberg, Phil found himself questioning their authority. Tubbo, as Lemamberg's new president, couldn't even keep his own friend from causing chaos, and when it came down to it, had no hesitation exiling him. And it made Phil wonder, if he was willing to exile his best friend, what would Tubbo be willing to do to him if their interests conflicted in the future? Rather, Phil's allegiances lied with his old friend, Technoblade. Techno found himself in a tough situation following his contribution to the destruction of Lemamberg. The people hated him for it, and since they all knew where he lived, he knew he had to move. And contacting the only person he could trust, Techno and Phil moved his home far away, to a much different land, a lonely light in a sea of snow. But it wouldn't be long before Phil's relationship with Techno would get him in trouble with the government, as one day he noticed the cabinet making their way towards his house. And as Phil watched from the window, he knew his fears about Lemamberg were finally coming true.
We are looking for Technoblade. Just tell us where he is. You're a citizen of Lemamberg. We're trying to get justice for our country.
I'm not going to tell you. He's changed his ways.
This is for the country. This is not a request. This is a demand.
Where do you think this loyalty that I have for this country exists? I'm not loyal to this country at all. I'm pretty new here, and if anything, you guys need to prove to me that I should care. Also,
Wow.
Techno and me go way back, and we do not rat out on each other.
If you're not going to help us do it the easy way, we're going to have to do it the hard way, right?
Right?
Right, fellas, look through his thing.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
What I found.
This is a compass called Techno's Compass. Philza, never forget that you weren't cooperative with us today.
Yeah, I mean, this is considered treason. I imagine you will be put under house arrest.
Okay.
All right, wait.
Which way does it go?
Phil had no time to worry for himself. He had to warn his friend. And messaging Techno about the army closing in on his location, Phil decided to follow them to witness the event himself. Hiding at the edge of a nearby forest, Phil witnessed everything. He saw his friend being taken away from his life of peace to be killed for his acts of war. And so, he had no choice but to return to his house to avoid suffering the same fate. He watched as Techno was caged below an anvil ready to drop on his head at the flick of a lever. And then, something completely unexpected happened.
He ruined the government. Puns is throwing right. What
is he doing?
What is Puns doing?
Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Oh shoot! Shoot! No! Hello, Ghostbird.
I've named him friend.
That's fantastic, Ghostbird. That's fantastic. I'm about to die, Ghostbird.
No, I'm playing this.
What? No! What? What? How did he not die?
What?
He's got Carl! He's got Carl!
Techno had managed to escape, but Phil remained trapped. Over the next few weeks, Phil began digging his escape route, eventually managing to break his ankle monitor with a magma block. And with the help of Techno, he escaped the confines of his home completely undetected. As they made their way through the land of snow, Techno explained that it was time for Lemamberg to be destroyed, for good. They had hurt innocent people, refused to acknowledge change, and with the help of Dream, the three knew they had everything they needed to destroy every last block of the once great land. Phil didn't hate Lemamberg. He hated what it did to people. Lemamberg had turned people violent, drove his friend mad, and as much as he wanted to live a peaceful life, Lemamberg had taken that option away the day they hurt Techno. And so, he joined the two, destroying Lemamberg for the last time.
It's all over, but the cry, and nobody's crying but me.
With the destruction of Lemamberg, Phil and Techno returned to their home with a sense of satisfaction. They truly hoped the people would learn their lesson and move on. Over the following months, Phil would continue to livestream on the Dream SMP, and his contribution to the story and involvement in the community led to the biggest spike in growth he'd ever seen. And that leads us to the final stories of the legend of Philza. As in the midst of his new adventures, Phil stayed true to his word, beginning a new world of hardcore Minecraft. Phil began Series 3 shortly after his devastating death in his 5-year world, motivated by his much bigger audience. Rather than streaming to 10 to 20 viewers, Phil now found himself peaking in the hundreds. And so, excited to see where the series would take him, Phil created the world, beginning a new journey. The game had changed a lot since he started his last world. Series 3 would be played in 1.14, meaning that the oceans held a lot of value in shipwrecks and buried treasure. This greatly reduced the amount of mining necessary off the start of a new world. Phil began the world by exploring a nearby ocean, looting shipwrecks and finding buried treasure before diving deep into the caves to mine. The days went by. Phil continued to progress through the game, making his way to the Nether, finding a skeleton spawner right next to spawn, and eventually finding the stronghold. By this point, Phil was a week and a half into the new world and things were going very well. All he needed to do was kill the dragon and he would have access to the outer islands of the End, where he could grab an elytra by looting an End city. And he managed to take it out fairly easily with the help of a pumpkin to protect himself from endermen and slow falling potions to eliminate fall damage. And so, there he stood, just one pearl away from the outer reaches of the End. And feeling ready as ever, Phil sent his pearl through the gateway.
Time to go through... What? No! Really? Oh, we got glitched out of the fucking world, dude. Oh, come on. What am I meant to do about that? What am I meant to do? What am I meant to do? I tried.
Phil had died to a glitch. And although he had only been playing for a week and a half, it was still disappointing. Shortly after, he decided to head back to the gateway and test ways to counter the glitch in creative mode. And after some testing, he came to the conclusion that it was a rendering error, and could be countered a number of ways, including pausing the game while teleporting and turning down render distance. Phil also just so happened to die in the middle of a 24-hour stream, and having planned to play in the Series 3 world the rest of the stream, he decided why not go again. And so, just minutes after his death in Series 3, Phil began Series 4. And with the glitch out of the way, he felt confident that this world would last much longer. Phil began Series 4 the exact same way as Series 3, getting basic tools and exploring the ocean. All in all, he managed to find plenty of shipwrecks and buried treasure, 2 villages, 2 desert temples, and a nether fortress in the span of about 14 hours. Series 4 was off to a great start, and would continue at a very quick pace. Phil gathered better gear, established his home at spawn, and made his way back to the End to fight the dragon, which he managed to take out the exact same way as Series 3. And as he stared down the deep void of the gateway, this time he was ready. The journey to the End City was a risky one, and so Phil made sure to take every precaution to ensure his survival. And sure enough, he got it. Before he could begin work on major builds, he had a few more things he had to do. First, he needed a solid XP farm, which he got from an Enderman farm he built in the End. Next, he needed to continue to explore and find structures to create farms, that way he would be able to gather resources as efficiently as possible. And quickly, he found success looting End cities for backup elytras, as well as locating a woodland mansion, ocean monument, witch hut, and pillager outpost. All of which proved very useful when making use of their unique spawn mechanics. And so, he pushed forward, looting the mansion, clearing the monument, killing more dragons, and getting better loot until the day finally arrived to announce his first build. His biggest project yet. Taking place in the End, Phil would be completely terraforming the land, creating a new area, known as Endlantis. Endlantis would be completely submerged in water, holding custom biomes and an Enderman farm at the center of it all. Phil knew this project would take months, but time would no longer be a problem. As a few days later, Phil announced that he was quitting his job and going full-time on YouTube and Twitch. he had come a long way since Series 2, now averaging thousands of viewers per stream instead of hundreds. He was engaged to his fiancée Kristen, who he actually met on one of his streams during Series 2 and would soon be able to afford getting married. Phil was finally living his dream. And with more free time than he ever had before, Phil began work on Atlantis. Four months later, it was done. TNT duplicators, covering the land with water, months of designing, all for this. A build truly unmatched by any other Phil had made. And with its completion, Phil had already made plans for his next major build. His plan was fairly simple. He would begin by mining out a large section of the Nether completely, leaving nothing but bedrock at the top and bottom. As he was doing this, he would create a large cube-shaped structure out of black concrete and black glass, enclosing a large space inside. And in this new space, made to look like a complete void, he would build a massive quartz fortress near the center of one of the walls. The build would also grow to include a large crystal structure that functioned as a wither skeleton farm, and battleships coming through a portal as if trying to attack, as well as many other small touches throughout the area, all coming together to create a truly mind-blowing build. And with the completion of the Fortress, that is where Phil's YouTube content has left off. On Twitch, however, he has moved forward with his next major build, a callback to his Ocean Monument build in Series 2, Flower Fall. Over the course of Series 4, Phil has also created his own lore for his world to help give his builds a story, and it goes sorta like this. In Phil's world exist various gods, each ruling over different lands and having different powers. The worst of all is the Ender King, who's always trying to take the best parts of other worlds to make his own. One day, he attempted to shrink down and steal a nether fortress for himself, and he was successful. What resulted was the creation of the Nether Void, which was attempted to be repaired by the Blaze Empress with the creation of the Fortress. But the Ender King didn't stop there. He took his reign of terror to the seas, where he succeeded in stealing an ocean monument from an entity known as the Ocean Overlord, who happened to be asleep during the attack, and finding the ocean in ruins. Yet another entity who is yet to be named attempted to fix the area, creating Flower Fall. Finally, as the Ender King's largest plot of all, he attempted to combine the three realms of the Nether and an Overworld into one, resulting in a major conflict. And as the battle drew to a close, the Ender King was left at a loss, resulting in what we now know as Atlantis. But the story is far from over. In fact, it continues to be written with every passing day. As of now, Phil has survived in his Series 4 world for just over 2 years. And barring some disastrous glitch or major oversight, it looks like it will not be ending anytime soon. Over his 14-year journey on YouTube, Phil has managed to create a community truly like no other. A community that helped him make his dreams come true, changing his life forever. And Phil continues to this day to inspire people by the millions, to create, to work towards something big, and to make the most of the one life they have. Because when you push yourself and the world around you to the very limits, truly amazing things will happen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the legend of Philza.